Okay, and welcome back, U.S. Virgin Islands International Virtual Chess. This is your host, Colin Heim, instructing out of St. Croix, U.S. Virgin Islands. I want to welcome everyone back, and I have an absolute monster of a game to show everyone that I played just a moment ago myself on the Lichess server. As you guys know, I have over 60 games, including lichess.org game solutions, winning games with mostly black and white pieces as well, as we have to play with both pieces in chess. But this was just an absolute monster of a match. My opponent here with the black pieces rated around 2100 classical. This was a classical game, so each player had 30 minutes on the clock. And wow, we went for this Petrov's defense, this Russian game. This was actually seen in the World Chess Championship. It was just played a little differently. Also with the Stafford Gambit, we're going to get into a little bit about the Gambit here and find out more about what happened in this match. I was rated somewhere around 2030 classical online ELO. My opponent rated about 70, almost 100 points more than me. Very good player. And we went right for this dynamic Russian game. And I want to explain the themes of this game. We're going to get into a little virtual analysis. It was 51 moves, so it's a lot to cover. And let's get right into it without too much more emphasis on the introduction. It's great to be back, guys. And let's get right into studying Petrov's defense with your host. And watch and learn and listen. And let's improve on our chess over the board and online. Let's go, guys. E4, E5. Okay? So king's pawn opening, just mirroring E4. Knight F3, Knight to F6. So we have the Russian game on the board, also known as Petrov's defense. This was played in the World Championship in 2018 between Fabiano Caruana and Magnus Carlsen. And the way that was played, we'll get into that another time. But I went ahead and captured here, as typical. What you're supposed to do with white is capture here on E5. In the World Chess Championship, something else was played. We'll get into that into the future, guys. But so let's detail now the Gambit. My opponent here played knight to C6. I went ahead and captured with the kingside knight, and now decaptures. So there's double pawns on the C file, and now white has an open pawn in the center, pushing the center pawn now to attack the F6 knight that got developed. So knight to D5. So far this is all book, and this is the Stafford Gambit. After giving up a pawn for some advancement here. And just chasing away this knight with C4, knight to B5, A2, A3, and now checking the white king here with knight to D3, and of course just capturing with the light squared bishop. And of course that means that black now gets to capture with the queen, right? So queen captures on D3 and queen E2. Okay, so far, guys, we've gone over the Stafford Gambit, and we've gone into some book moves played in this opening. Pretty well-known theory, and let's keep going, guys. So bishop to F5, so far best moves being played. Now double attack here on the B2 horse to gain an advantage. Of course, capturing and recapturing on D3. That was the whole point behind that, just to have a battery there on the queen side. Captures, and now B2, B3. Bishop to C5, so all-out development. Black has the bishop pair. There's no more queens on the board as of move 11. And let's proceed. So putting pressure here now, of course, attacking the B4 bishop. But guys, find out why that's a mistake. Why did your host here going over this virtual analysis for U.S. Virgin Islands International Chess, why was that a mistake, guys? Let's just take it back for a moment. Why was that a mistake? Let's find a better move in this position for white. Well, obviously, white can't short castles because the bishop cuts off the black light squared bishop cuts that off. Maybe in some, yeah, guys, the best move in this position is just knight to C3. Knight to C3 and life can go on. So making a mistake here with B4, and now this kind of sets me back because my rook is now under attack. And these black bishops are actually beautiful. My opponent here rated 2100. I guess he really knew what he was doing, really putting white under a lot of pressure here. Notice how white's queenside, my queenside, is completely undeveloped as well. Knight C3 is, of course, still recommended in this position. But let's keep going, guys. So a lot of material off the board, no queens on the board. White has an advanced queenside. And black is also going to win back the E5 center pawn. So finally, knight to C3. Black winning back the material, the gambited pawn. and c5. Okay, c5 was played, and now short castles. Bishop to b2, rook from f to e8, and castling queenside. After rook castle queenside, bishop to d4 and f3. Okay, so best moves being played. The engine loves all this. I already went over this just previously before I wrote this video for you guys. a5, ba5, and rook captures a5. Okay, so now guys, let's try to find that actually wasn't recommended either to capture there, but let's just go over this now. What's the best move for white in this position, guys? Without looking at the notation below, let's try to find the best move for white in this position. What did you guys find? Did you guys find rook from h to e1? Well, before it was better. Anyway, this just gets the rooks off the board. Black has a lot of problems here with back rank issues. He forgot to develop his kingside pawns to give that king some place to go in the future. So back rank issues basically forces this capture, and now just of course threatening checkmate in 1. So that's why king to f8 was played by my opponent. And now let's get into the details of this game, guys. So knight to e4. Yes, guys, if you found knight to e4 in this position, that's actually the star move in the position. I found knight to e4. And now let's get into some tactics, guys. This game really has a lot of very deep themes that I want to get into, and I hope you guys understand the rest of this. I had white pieces here, and I want to show exactly what happened, and I want you guys to be able to grasp what happened here at this point of the game, as it does require some depth, okay? So with knight e4, we see what's happening. The c5 pawn that the rook has control over here, as well as the dark squared bishop. That did not get played in the game. Instead, we saw bishop captures on e4. And now, guys, without looking at the notation below, find the best move for white in this position. Can you guys find the best continuation for white? I'll give everyone a couple of seconds. Find the best move for white. Be a chess player and get some depth. Find the best move. Well, I'll give you guys a hint. It is not f captures e. That's a big no-no. The engine says no. The best move, undoubtedly, guys, is just bishop captures on d4. After bishop captures on d4, my opponent dropped his bishop back now to d5, as it was under attack by the rook, of course, on e1 and the f3 pawn. So, as a response, guys, now gaining a tempo with black and moving my king up the board, saying, well, now you can check me if you want on b5, but that didn't happen. My opponent instead happened to just play f6 to get his king now to a safe square. So now I played bishop to c3, attacking the rook on a5. Rook to b5 check. That was not the best move, but it looked like it needed to be played. Because now, guys, I get to just block with my b4 bishop, and that bishop is actually a monster piece now. And after the exchange of rooks and how everything happened, white looks a lot better. Now, guys, pay attention. This is exactly why I wanted to show this lesson in this virtual tutorial. And let's pay attention and let's look about how to play this position. It's black to move, and black played the move b6. Okay, so b6 was actually considered by the engine to be the strongest move. Now, guys, I want you to find the best continuation for white, find the tactic, and find what basically creates a winning position, even after making a mistake in the opening without playing knight to c3. As we mentioned, knight to c3 would have been better for coverage. B3 was a mistake, allowing that bishop attack on my a1 rook. Now, formerly the a1 rook, which is now an e1, cutting the black king. Notice how the black king is cut, guys. Right, if you guys found c captures on b, c captures b6 is great, and black played the move c5, now attacking the light square bishop. So I'm going to lose my light squared bishop now, guys, that was defending, blocking the king from the attack of the black rook. Now, anyways, guys, b captures on c7, and this is exactly where I wanted to show this. Now, the only move in the position is to drop the bishop back to b7. Obviously, bishop to b7 now covers the queening square. c8 is the queening square. So, rook to c1, and now, after recapturing now my opponent, capturing the bishop that blocked the attack from the rook, just queens now, guys. Don't waste any more time, just queens. There's no other move. So queens, and after bishop captures and rook captures, and best move in the position, f7 now, because the king eventually wants to get to g6, and that's exactly what happened after the c7 check. So black king goes to g6, and after pushing now a4, guys, not capturing here. If captures, checks, and I mean, I'm still up a pawn in this position. but I think it's more drawing than anything. So definitely not taking the pawn, guys, just pushing a4. This is why I wanted to show this as well. Pushing a4 and rook to d5. Swinging the rook back now to c2, obviously protecting a d2 pawn. Rook to d3 and a5. Okay, so white has a pass pawn now. After all that was said and done, guys, after all those tactics and after how well we played with white, now I have a pass pawn. Let's show now how to win this with white. Okay, b3 was played, and now, guys, find the move that your instructor, your virtual analysis, find the move that was played here by myself. Guys, I played rook to c3 here, and now, knowing that my opponent was going for the check here, walking the king out the board, recapturing now the b3 pawn with my own king, and after rook captures on g2, that's fine. a6 is coming. How to stop the promoted pawn? Best way is rook to e2. Now swinging back to e8 after a7 was played, and now just walking the king up the board. Guys, it's no surprise, but this a7 pawn is going to queen, and black is going to go down a whole rook and only have a pawn for that. So this is what's going to happen. There's no way to keep that pawn from promoting. It's going to happen so long as this white rook is on the c file, which it is. It will always cut the black king from making progress. So yes, the king is it should go to f4, f5, f4, e5, but it doesn't matter at this point. I played the move king to b6 with white, and after king to f4, which was best, and king to b7, yes, there's a check. But now, guys, find the best move in the position for white. If you're a chess player, it should be somewhat obvious. Yes, guys, rook to c7 does it, and after rook to e8, yes, there is no way. a8 equals queen, rook captures, king captures, and now after h5, let's just win this game for white now. Rook to c3 and king to e5, throwing a check, going back to f4, swinging over to c3 again, now wanting to repeat moves, but that's not going to happen. I'm just going to walk up to b7, check the king here on c6, king's going to go back to e5, and yes, after king to c7, guys, that was the last move of the game. I want to say thanks to everyone for watching this beautiful game, this Russian Stafford's Gambit, and we really proved this game, guys, on the queen side how to make it happen. This battle here, this skirmish that happened on white's queen side was just executed perfectly, minus the b3 mistake that kind of exposed my rook. But after knight to c3, guys, everything turned out to work out really well for white, and my opponent here rated 2100 in classical chess on League open-based web server resigned the game after king to c7, as there's nothing left to do. Let's continue a little further. We're almost 15 minutes in here, guys. I don't ever want to exceed 15 minutes in my virtual instructionals, but let's just see what let's go for something here. Let's say just king back to f4, and yeah, king to f4 is no good, obviously, because now f6 is being taken, so that's a blunder. Let's go back here. Now this just gives more time for my king to come forward now, and yeah, suppose yeah, maybe push the pawn, go up the board a little while. Yeah, still there's room to get involved here. Right now, attacking the f6 pawn, and yeah, just going back to f4. F4 is no good. e6. Yeah, maybe just throwing a check here or advancing one of my own pawns. The best move there is just to push my own pawn, and there's no way in the end for the kingside pawns here to advance because I have two pawns, even though they're split pawns. There's no way to really get forward. Let's say you maybe start advancing here. Okay, there's a check, and after all is said and done, you can still never do anything about this. You're not even encouraged to, well, maybe you're encouraged to go forward here as it does, but then I'm going to start picking up your pawns, and yeah, even if you advance this pawn now, there's no real way to make a good continuation, guys. I'm just going to capture here on g5, and I think we can all go home, and that'll be the end of it. There's a white rook on c3, and the king, you know, the king isn't even recommended to capture here because I'm just going to capture your f-pawn, right? So that would have been one way to continue. After king to c7, my opponent threw in the towel. Thanks a lot, guys. Made it back to 2100. And a few more videos to come after today. It's August 10th. And feel free to rewind this video or rewatch it. And much more to come in the future over the board and online. Take care, guys. Bye-bye. And see everyone on the other side.